Welcome to Podsdale, where we explore the stories that make Scottsdale truly special. I'm your host, Holly Walter from the city's Office of Communication. Join me as we learn what makes Scottsdale tick. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Okay, the weather is finally cooling off, so we're going to talk about hiking today, but not only hiking, the safety that's involved in doing that. It seems like it might be a little odd to talk about hiking safety this time of year, but actually it's very important because we have more people out on the trails when the weather becomes nicer. Today on the show, I have Yvonne Massman and Madison Barasha. They are both natural resources coordinators at our beautiful preserve. And then we have Fire Captain Gary Burns with the Scottsdale Fire Department. Welcome, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we were chatting before we started rolling tape on this, and I discovered that Yvonne and Gary, you guys have actually known each other for a long, long time, right?
We do. We've known each other since 1990.
Correct, yeah.
We're still friends.
Yeah, no, that's surprisingly enough.
And you still like each other. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're still working very closely.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Gary's station is about a mile from the Gateway Hay Trailhead, so I get to see him pretty often.
And I would imagine that's an important partnership.
Yes.
Outside the friendship. But to go back a little more, Yvonne, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your history with the city of Scottsdale?
I've been with the city for a little over 35 years. I've been involved with the preserve since the inception of it, which has really been great. And I have worked up in the Pinnacle Peak at Pinnacle Peak Park for 18 years. During that time, too, I was also working in the preserve. So I used to do leisure education programs, take people on backpacking trips, hiking trips, day trips, do all kinds of fun outdoor adventures. So I'm really happy to be here with the city.
Since you've been here from the start, it sounds like you've really seen a lot happen within the preserve and
yeah, I really
that
have.
area evolve.
And we've really just made it better and better. I mean, it is safer. Our trail signs are wonderful. We've got so much land. It's just really a gem. And I can see why that's the thing that we sell Scottsdale on, that our preserve. People come here for that.
Right. All over the world. People come out here to see the preserve. And Gary, how about you?
I started with the city back in about 1990 at Mustang Library, of all places. Transitioned over to rural metro and fire, and then came back to the city employment back in 2005 and transition. I've been a member of the technical rescue team for about 30 years, currently labor co-chair for the team right now. And I work in the McDowell Mountain Ranch, Fire Station 610. Right
Okay. So when you talk about technical rescue, what is that?
So technical rescue is a broad term that covers disciplines that are outside of normal fire response. So fire response would be fire and EMS. We take care of mountain rescues, both high angle, low angle, and helicopter operations. We also do swift water, confined space, trench rescue, building collapse, and one of the more unusual things, we do arborist rescue for palm tree trimmers or arborists that get tangled up or emergencies up in trees to get them out.
Sounds unusual, but it does happen.
It's a once or twice a year type of incident, but it's a broad spectrum of things that we cover for technical rescue. It's the high risk, low frequency operations that we concentrate on.
What type of training is involved in that specialty?
So for our training, starts off with a course that's taught out of Phoenix Fire Department, the TRT 200 course. It's 200 hours of training in those disciplines that I was just talking about. Lots of field work, lots of time up on the side of the mountain. But over the years, I've sent new guys through this. They come back with just a huge smile on their face because it's some of the most exciting, fun training that we do in the fire department. I have more of a slighted view of it because I get so excited about just being outdoors. It's just a great opportunity for firefighters to do something beyond the normal spectrum of our fire department response.
Sure. And still helping people when they need it.
And don't you guys train with the whole county?
Yes, we train regionally. So at any point during a mountain rescue, you're going to see fire apparatus from other fire departments. Scottsdale currently only has one technical rescue unit. On any given technical rescue, we have a minimum of 2, sometimes 3 to 4 responding in. So you'll see other departments responding into the calls within the Scottsdale Preserve. That's part of the whole regional automatic aid response program.
That's great. And last but not least, we have Madison. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Madison.
Hello. Well, I did not start in 1990. I was not even born yet.
That's when her parents got married.
Yeah, it was. I started with the city back in 2019 as a part-timer, working for Yvonne, actually, at Pinnacle Peak Park. Then I worked my way up to now become a natural resources supervisor coordinator for the McDowell Sonoran Preserve, and my office is at Browns Ranch. So before I started with the city, I studied environmental sciences at NAU, go Lumberjacks, and I did a lot of field work. So I went to various outdoorsy areas. I talked to some cows. They talked back. It was a good time. I love being outside, but I have a very much science background with also recreation. So
Perfect fit. And what a beautiful place to have an office.
my favorite place, the best office I would say in the city.
I agree. I agree. So today we're talking about hiking. And I think, Madison, you're going to kick us off talking about just being prepared and how to prepare for these hikes, right?
I love it. I'm a very prepared person. Today I'm prepared with a lot of acronyms, so people hold on to your hats. So I always like to start off thinking of how would I prepare for a hike if I was going to hike in Montana. I always like to do research beforehand, so I always like to tell people research before you go out, especially if you are out of state. Please do research. And the things to kind of focus on when you're doing your research, get ready. Here's the first acronym is WWWD. What would we do? So the first W goes with weather. What kind of weather would happen? Is it going to be hot? Is it going to be nice? Is it going to be rainy? Even snowy. Sometimes we do get snow in the preserve. So kind of prepare for that. Then with water, how much water should you bring? More than enough, extra water. And if you're hiking with your dog, bring water for them too, please. And then with wildlife, what are you going to see? What kind of wildlife will you see out there? We do have lovely rattlesnakes. They're so fun and so cute as long as you keep a safe distance. And then also distance. How far do you want to go? How many miles do you want to hike? What do you want to see? Keep that in mind when you're doing your research. And great tools to research these awesome acronyms that I made up is social media, like Scottsdale Preserve. We do have our own Instagram page and also Facebook, Scottsdale Preserve. It's very easy to keep track of. Also, Google, great tool. For us, specifically, the city of Scottsdale, we have our own website and we have the own McDowell Sonoran Preserve with a lot of updates. Also, just any weather stations. Seriously, weather is a big key in this. And then always prepare the day before your hike with hydrating and acclimate to the weather. And elevation, let's just say if you're coming from Hawaii, it's we're like at 3,000, 2,000 feet of elevation. Just in case, kind of acclimate to the nice, lovely elevation that we have. Because if you're doing, let's say, Tom Thumb, it's a pretty hefty hike and you get up there in elevation and you can maybe experience a little bit of elevation sickness, who knows? But just again, acclimate with elevation and weather, please. And if it's hot. Then what should you wear? My next acronym is cactus because we are in the Sonoran Desert. So how do you prepare? All right, you go from like head to toe. So I start off with C, beginning of the word cactus, is clothes. Wear breathable and light-colored clothes. It is great for the Sonoran Desert because you will be sweating a lot. Then A is additional apparel. Maybe you need to bring a rain jacket, a windbreaker, a sun shirt, etc. Anything else you deem necessary. Then covering, a hat. Hats are great. It protects your scalp and it keeps you cool. Traction, shoes. Make sure your shoes have great tread. You can wear hiking boots, hiking shoes, just make sure they have great tread on them. What is tread? So if you ever played sports growing up, like soccer, softball, and you kind of see like the cleats underneath, they help you run on the grass or the dirt. They kind of provided this traction for you. Keep that in mind when you're out hiking. You need that traction so you don't slip. Got to protect those knees. And then U is UV protection, sunscreen, sunglasses. It's hot here. The sun beats down on you. Please wear sunscreen. And then sunglasses are great to protect your eyes. And then the last is stability. Do you need trekking poles? Do you need anything else to assist you in this hike? Just think stability. So that's what should you wear. And then my last acronym is what should you pack? So I put it's prep pack. So what should you bring? Phone. Please bring your phone fully charged and keep it on you at all times. I cannot say that enough. The amount of times that people give their phone to someone else to carry, please don't do that. Keep your phone with you and fully charged. A reliable flashlight. Let's just say something happens and you need some light. It's always great to have a flashlight with you in any case. And then E, extra water. Always bring extra water, please, in the lovely Sonoran Desert. And then P is paper map. We do have paper map at all of our trailheads, so that is a great tool to use as well. Then P for poop bag, if you are bringing your dog with you, or if you want to pick up trash. It's a great little trash bag. A, aid kit. And then C, candy, just in case if we need a little boost. And then K, knife. So that's just kind of like what you should wear, what should be in your pack. And then one last thing, if you're ever hiking by yourself, which I know I do, I always love to tell someone where I'm going, which trailhead, that I'm going out for this hike. And then after you're done, just check in with that person. It's always good to have that in mind. And it's just like someone you know is watching you and has your back. So that's
Absolutely.
what I have for prep.
That's a lot of information, but very good. Especially that last point, more times than not, we have rescued people off trails who were out hiking by themselves. And fortunately, there was someone who knew they were out there. Mm-hmm. And when they didn't get back, to go out and to look for them. And you also mentioned the sunscreen. That's something we have at the trailheads, correct?
I believe at Gateway.
Well, we're going to be working on that. We're getting these sunscreen dispensers. We're going to do a pilot program starting at Gateway. So that'll be
great.
That'll be this season.
Great. So the moral of the story, Madison, is you just don't head out with your sandals and a small bottle of water. You actually need to do a little bit of research. You need to be prepared to be out there.
If you're hiking Mount Everest to our lovely Gateway loop, always be prepared. Even our nice little Saguaro 1 mile loop at Gateway, always do your research and always bring what you need because you never know what will happen.
What do you think our visitors are surprised by the most when they do a little bit of research? Do you think it's that the warmer temperatures we have in the fall? The terrain?
I think it's the rocky terrain.
Rocky terrain and also the gorgeous pictures I post on our Instagram. Again, Scottsdale Preserve. There's so many gorgeous pictures. But that, and I think rattlesnakes too at times. I think people are surprised when we have rattlesnakes sometimes, even in February. They think that they're actually out in the summer. That's not true. I always tell people if we are out, the snakes are out.
Good point. Good point. And Yvonne, you're going to talk a little bit more about what to do when you're actually out on the trail to remain safe.
Yep. My little spin is on safety. So piggybacking on what Madison said, you want to make a plan and stick to your plan. So often people will be hiking and go, oh, what's that over there? And then go off onto a different direction. So you always want to stay with the plan that you do. If you see another trail that looks interesting, you can always go back and hike that another day. Madison also said is like, tell somebody where you're going. But you don't necessarily have to just tell them where you're going. Now they have these tracking, like iPhone trackings and stuff like that. We actually had a rescue last year that the patient was found by the tracking of his phone that his daughter had. So do that. And the paper map, if you have your phone, you can watch All Trails and the different apps that they have. But what if you didn't charge your phone? Or what if the heat is like diminishing the battery on your phone? So having a paper map is always good. And you need to know how to read a map too. So don't just go out there and grab a map at the trailhead and go out and then go, oh, I don't even know where I am. I don't know how to read this map. We take great pride in our trail map signs. And on every trail sign too, and even in different increments along the trail, we have emergency markers. Our steward, she has a plan where every time she takes a drink of water, she does it at an emergency marker. So she's drinking the water, looking at the emergency marker, and so kind of taking it in a little bit. You want to pay attention to those. Those are what is going to get you rescued. So as far as like safety, what Gary mentioned with the TRT and our automatic aid, if you're out there and you're starting to feel kind of crappy, starting to feel kind of bad.
I think crappy is okay to say. We'll be all right.
You're starting to feel
feeling like
beep. If you're starting to feel bad, then take heed. Don't keep going. If you're not feeling good, turn around. If your water's half gone, turn around. If you're not feeling good, turn around. But if you do happen to keep going and you're not feeling good, just so you know, fire will come and rescue you, and there's no fee. People can't believe that when they come in from out of town. They'll be like, what are you talking about? I don't believe that. There's no way. But fire will come out and help you. They're working. They're here to help us, right? The only time that there would be a fee associated with a rescue is you were physically put into an ambulance, whether a helicopter ambulance or an ambulance on the ground, and transported. Fire department will come in, the TRT, Gary, our wonderful Gary right here, will come in, get you off the trail, and they might even help get you stabilized at the trailhead for a couple of hours. And then you just sign off saying, I don't want to be transported, and go on your merry way. You probably feel bad the rest of the day.
A lot of our rescues, I would guess probably 40% don't end up going to the hospital with us. There's that component of once we get them off the trail, do a little bit of hydration rehab. They'll sometimes decline ambulance transportation to the hospital. From a financial aspect, when we have folks that are contemplating assistance out in the field, we don't want that to be their primary reason not to call, because that could ultimately end up in a fatal consequence. Right. So the emergency services for rescue are part of the grand scheme of plans. We don't want people to withhold their call for assistance due to a financial concern.
Better to be safe than sorry, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so let's dive into more feeling crappy, as you say, Yvonne. Like, how would you define that? What are some of the symptoms someone should take note of if they're on the trail and they just aren't feeling right when you know you might be in trouble?
Excessive sweating, or just kind of starting to feel kind of funky, even in your stomach. Like a lot of times when people start going into heat exhaustion and heat stroke, which is the next level, they might throw up or their heart might be racing a little bit. Just know your body. I mean, people know. It's also like a gut instinct too. You know yourself. You know what's going on with you. So don't override that. Another thing too is a lot of people get out there because they're being pressured by a spouse or the bachelorette party and like, come on, you can do it. Keep going. But if you're not feeling well, or you don't think that you can keep up, then know your body and turn around and go back. Don't break under the peer pressure of like, we're just around the corner. Come on, you can do it kind of thing. So that's always important too, to stick to your own abilities.
And especially if you're a leader of a group, whether it's an organized group or a family outing. A month ago, we had 13 rescued out at Gateway on one incident.
I remember that
it was a family reunion, and so if you're leading that group, you need to understand who the, for lack of a better term, the weakest link in the group is, and that's as far as you should push the group. Because us as humans, when we're in a group, we want to keep up, and so if we're not paying attention to that person that's in the poorest shape, that could be, the consequences could be significant. Especially if you're the one that's the slowest person, you don't want to say anything. But if you're leading a group, it's very important that you pay attention to those slowest members of the group and where they are physically. The other thing with making sure that we stay together, if we start losing people in our group, and that becomes even more of a chaotic rescue scene, when we have multiple points on the trail that we're looking for people. So staying together as a group and making sure we only drive as hard as that weakest member of the group can go. And then if we're not feeling well, you got to turn around and start heading back.
And that happens on many occasions as well. I know, Yvonne, you actually won an employee award.
Thanks to Madison's nomination.
You're very welcome.
It involved a rescue, and that involved someone, I believe, if I remember right, a wife leaving her husband, right, to get some assistance.
Well, they were hiking friends. They were hiking friends here.
Okay.
So they knew each other's ability. And actually what had happened was they didn't stick to their plan. They were going to just go up to Tom's Thumb and come back. But then they were going to go Bell Pass and then we're going to come back. And then they saw, Tom's Thumb, let's just keep going and do that. So they came back and they knew each other's ability because they've been part of this hiking club. And the person that was the rescue, he said, just go ahead, because he knew that his partner was starting to get overheated. And he's like, I'll be there in just a little bit. So she came down, which she feels terrible. Thank goodness he survived, because it would have been really hard on her if he would have died out there, because she left him. But they just knew each other's abilities. So that's one thing. Always stay with your hiking friends and partners and all that good stuff. And stay on the trail. Another thing, like when Gary mentioned that hiking group that we had a month ago, they were off trail. They went seeking shade. And actually the person that was rescued, he also went seeking shade. So his daughter had him on the phone, on her iPhone watching.
Find My app, or like Find My Friend.
Yeah,
okay.
that thing. And that's how they found him. She sent a picture of where he was, because he was clearly way off trail when seeking shade, and he was also becoming delirious. So when they actually found him, he had a core temperature of 106 degrees, and he survived it. And he did have third-degree burns.
I was just going to say that those pictures he sent stay with me in my brain forever.
Yeah, you cannot unsee it. And so that's another thing, too. When you're out hiking, and Madison mentioned being prepared, but another thing is to carry an emergency blanket. An emergency blanket will give you a barrier between you and the ground. Even though he had clothes on, he still had third-degree burns through his clothes. And he had to have skin grafts. It was really remarkable that what he went through. So the emergency blanket can also create shade. And if you're kind of hiding in the shade, you can also use it to signal the helicopter. Mm-hmm. We have the Firebird that comes in and helps the TRT team find patients too. Another thing too is staying on the trail. If you go off trail, you could go anywhere. And what Gary was saying with the slowest hiker, which I've done that as a guide, I've always had to tailor the hiking adventure to the slowest person. But it's not like the preserve's going to go away. So if you don't accomplish your goal that day, you can plan another adventure to go out and hike the trail again. And another thing is going out early. Our preserve is open from sunrise to sunset. So going out first thing in the morning. And we've had numerous times where it's been 80 in the morning, like it is right now. It's 80 in the morning, but it's going to be 107 in the afternoon. So getting out there as soon as possible is really key.
And those temperatures can rise quickly.
Another thing that Gary, when he mentioned about automatic aid and stuff, Scottsdale is the only fire department that will respond to a dog. And we do have dog rescues. We've had people take their dog out when it was 84 and then their dog died at the top of the trail. So if you do have a dog rescue, you want to make sure when you call 911 that you ask for a Scottsdale unit specifically, because Scottsdale will take care of our dogs.
Yeah, they will still send the closest unit, but Yvonne's done great education outreach with the dog stuff over the years. Unfortunately, with folks bringing their dogs out, think about where our pets spend 99% of their time, usually indoors. And walking around in bare feet. Now, if we go outdoors in bare feet, how far are we going to make it? So we have both the damage to the dogs from just the rocky terrain to the heat. And Yvonne's brought her dog out, and we've done heat guns on her dog's back. It was 146.
Yeah,
just in a short time in the sun.
Wow.
So please, before you consider taking your pet out, understand what they're going through. They're barefooted in direct sun in a fur coat. It's not comfortable when the heat hits it. And then also it's quite sad because we have unfortunately brought down deceased animals off the trail that just didn't need to be there in the first place.
Didn't your statistics show that like 50% of all dogs were a fatality? And those are just what we know of, right?
Correct. Yeah. Because now you're dealing with a patient that can't tell you when they're starting to feel it. And our canine companions, all they want to do is please us. So they're going to keep on going literally until they collapse. But at that point, it's too late sometimes. So just please, consider what you're about to do to your pet before you go out there. And, if it's February, great time to go hiking. If it's June, probably not the time to. My poor Shih Tzu doesn't even like walking around the block at 10 o'clock at night during June.
What's your dog's name?
Eva.
Oh, that's my fiance's grandma's name. I know, sorry, it's not like
Twice
relevant.
removed with the
Twice
fourth
removed.
cousin.
Eva's a precocious 12 years old, one eye, and that one eye is already going blind. So I have to carry a flashlight over the top of her head.
I love Eva.
Okay, that's really freaking
love
cute.
Eva.
Speaking of like emergencies too, what do you tell our stewards or our volunteers in those trainings when they do have to call 911? I remember you said that you always have to start that you are in the Scottsdale McDowell Sonoran Preserve.
So part of the program that we work with the Conservancy is we train all of the Conservancy stewards basic first aid. And that's done with the fire department and myself. Everybody's a little scared about calling 911. It's exhilarating. So when you do call 911, you're going to get, if you're in Scottsdale, so if you're in the preserve and you call 911, depending on the location where you are, we pretty much have a good signal, but sometimes it could be kind of shoddy. So if you're more towards the east trailheads like Granite Mountain or Thompson, you might get the sheriff's department because Fountain Hills works with the sheriff's department. But every 911 call is going to work the same way. When you call 911, they're going to answer. It's going to be a police department. They're going to say, what's your emergency? Is it fire, medical, or police? When you say it's medical, they're going to transfer you to the Phoenix
Regional dispatch.
Regional dispatching system. And they dispatch for the entire Maricopa County. So they'll know which unit's going to be the closest and how they'll respond. Feel free to chime in if I get anything wrong.
You're doing great so far.
Thanks. So then you want to make sure you give them as many details as possible because they want to initiate the best possible source of help that they can. And they're going to ask you a series of questions too. So the questions that they're going to ask you are part of a script. And it's going to feel like, oh my gosh, just get somebody here as fast as you can. Please. Well, it takes about 5 minutes to respond, depending on, Thompson might be a little longer or out at Granite Mountain, but it usually takes 5 minutes to get to the scene. But then they might have to hike up. So they're getting somebody going while they're asking you all these questions. It's not that they're waiting for you to answer all the questions and then it's like, okay, now you guys can go. Be on your merry way. There's already somebody rolling. Another thing too is when I don't ever answer my phone if I don't know the number, but if you've called 911, or definitely give them a phone number, and you're going to have a call back, and it's probably going to be a number that you don't recognize. So if that's the case, always answer whatever call is coming in, because it could be Gary saying, "Hey, what's your location? I have down that you're at EE1, but that doesn't make sense," and stuff. So they want to get as many more details as possible. Another thing too, as I want you to know, is it looks like the Macy's Day Parade when fire responds, because they want to have as many units there to do the best. Like when Gary mentioned that 13-person incident, how many engines do you think we had there? Like 10?
That was a first alarm assignment. So we probably had nine or 10 trucks, 50 to 55 personnel.
Yeah, because they wanted to make sure they had enough paramedics for the 13 patients that they were going to have to deal with. So it's going to look like that. It doesn't mean that the city's not safe because all of those units are there. It means that they're going to take the best care. And just so you guys know, Scottsdale is the best customer service.
I agree.
Of fire and police and hiking guides.
And the preserve, yes.
And the staff, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nothing happens without the preserve staff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So those are just some things to know. So when you're calling 911, it's scary, but just know that they're there to help you.
Right.
And know your emergency marker. That's the key too.
So to tag on to Yvonne's thing, and she described it perfectly. Let me tell you what it looks like on our end. When you
Right.
call in 911, your cell phone automatically sends the dispatch center their longitude, latitude. And on my computer in the truck, my MCT, I can see a cell phone icon overlaid on a map of the preserve with all the trails and all the trail markers, emergency markers. So I've got a physical representation of where you're at, and the dispatcher will tell you to stay put. And there's a very good reason for that, because once that first cell phone ping happens, it doesn't move with you. So if you start moving away from where that initial call was, then it compounds the confusion trying to find you. So knowing your closest emergency marker, if you have it, having a cell phone signal and staying where you initially made that cell phone call. And then also let us know that if you're with the person or you're the person that you're calling for, or if you saw somebody 30 minutes ago. Because remember, when you set that call on that cell phone, it pings you where you're standing right then and there. So if you saw somebody back a mile ago that was in trouble, verbalize that when you call 911. But, and then when that happens, Yvonne said, answer that phone call, because usually that follow-up phone call is coming from the first company officer that's responding to that call, because we just want to verify, because the game of telephone, sometimes things change. We want to get first person knowledge about what's going on, and just helps us kind of tailor our response. That will change how we respond out in the preserve. We either hike, use a 4-wheel drive Polaris to get out there, or even insert by helicopter. So all that information is used to determine how we respond once we get out to the preserve.
Do you have numbers on how many rescues take place in a year's time, or?
I have the latest numbers are 2022, because that's the last time we did a study.
Oh, but you know what? Some of that stuff is fascinating too, as far as like male, female,
Yeah.
out-of-town guests.
We've done studies, and mainly because we incorporated this into our community risk reduction program with the fire department, coordinating with the preserve staff to try to get better messaging out there to reduce these things before they happen and reduce the severity of these things when they do happen. So that was the kind of the purpose of that program, the community risk reduction program. But last set of numbers I have for 2022 were 22 rescues in the preserve. Those were full-blown, full response rescues. Now, that's not counting the individual that had heat cramps at the trailhead that we got called for. But each one of those responses includes the Scottsdale Fire Department and neighboring jurisdictions to help us out to fulfill the full assignment. If you're interested in some further stats, I can throw those at you. One thing that we had always had the question of for years is, wow, how many out-of-towners are getting in trouble out here? Because we see a lot of out-of-towners getting in trouble, people visiting from out of town. So when we actually sat down and ran the numbers, it's about 1/3 of our responses are for people that are from out of town. That means 2/3 of them are local. So the reason that we had kind of a seat of our pants, like, oh, it's these out-of-towners that are coming in and they're getting in trouble, it's because the stories were so egregious. It was the
ones you hear about.
It was the family of 4 saying, no, we do have water. We have 1 16-ounce bottle of water for the whole family. Where, if you're local here, that 16-ounce water is gone in 3 minutes, So it's the person that's halfway up Tom's thumb in a pair of leather loafers. It's the person in July that's hiking that decided to start their hike at 11 o'clock in the morning and they're getting overheated. So some of those stories, like the locals, we kind of stay away from that. But the egregious, crazy stories that you hear about people hiking when it's 115 degrees, some of them are as crazy as, hey, I just wanted to get my Instagram picture out there on the hottest day of the year. And we do see those on a regular basis, especially the preserve staff sees them because they're coming in the trailhead and there's one car out there when it's 117 out and there's no real fitness reason to be there in the first place.
No.
So
And
so
that
it
whole
happens
thing
to
with,
locals too.
but when
Yeah.
people say too, I'm acclimated, but it's science. I mean, you can't acclimate to your brain getting beaten down on the sun at 117. I think that's just outlandish.
So true. And I even experienced heat exhaustion this summer. You know, like we even experienced it. And then I knew the signs. I'm like, all right, I'm going back in the office. I sat down on the office floor for 2 hours, rehydrating myself and eating salty snacks. I'm like, I'm not going back outside. So it's like, even we're not invincible and we realize what we need to do.
Yep.
Gary,
tell
how
them
do
about
first responders prep for these rescues? Because that's hard on them as well.
So we keep a pretty tight fitness routine for the rescue crews. For me personally, I will tell you this, it's probably not the greatest idea for the general population is I have a tendency in the summer to hike in the later morning hours because I'm trying to just get myself acclimatized to that year. And I do it every year. So in June, I will push my hikes out later to 10 or 11 in the morning. But when I'm going for an hour and I'm coming back. What that does, it allows me to get my body kind of ready because as a first responder, I'm expected to tolerate those. But like Yvonne said, there's a certain point of physiology where even if you're used to it, it will overcome you. So it's a little bit of training to get there, but also the important part is knowing right when you're hitting that limit to turn around before it becomes a significant incident. Mm-hmm. Over the years, we've had to send first responders directly to the hospital from the rescue scene because they got overwhelmed because of the situation. Our neighboring jurisdiction has gone through the point of shutting trailheads down at certain weather conditions, and they've seen a 40% drop in rescues in those areas. There's some data now that shows these summit trails are just not great ideas for super hot days. But currently in the city of Scottsdale, we are fully open, but we also don't have these crazy summit trails that attract the masses that our neighboring jurisdiction does.
Like Camelback and Piestewa, we get this question all the time when City of Phoenix started closing those trails down. Great idea. I think, Yvonne, you told me it was one specific fire crew that kept going up 3 times in one day to a rescue instead of being substituted out. And that's so much on your body to begin with in the summer. And then people are asking us, what about the preserve? Well, to keep in mind, we have over 80 access points. So closing all of those down would be a lot of personnel. We closed down at noon for 4th of July to protect the preserve from possible fireworks. And that takes basically like a week for us to prepare for one half day.
And like 70 personnel with the stewards and the staff just to maintain it for that little half of a day.
And for City of Phoenix as well, they only closed Piestewa, so Dreamy Draw, I believe, area, Trailhead, South Mountain, and then Camelback. So they just closed these 3 big areas. Again, like you're saying, these summit trails.
Yep.
So just like,
In Scottsdale, we really, really work on education. So when it's going to be a hot day, we put our extreme excessive heat sign. So you can't walk past a trailhead without seeing that. We have slider sandwich boards. Madison posts things on her Instagram page.
Scottsdale Preserve.
And we go out to the social media too and just say, hey, excessive heat warning, we need you to pay attention. So that's part of our whole schlick is education.
Yeah. Gary, is there a certain time of year where rescues are more prevalent?
So
See peak times?
The peak time every year is spring break. Now, not this past year because we had a pretty mild weather window for spring break. That's first and second week of March. But traditionally, that's when we're starting to get a little bit warmer, and then we're bringing a large number of out-of-state visitors in. So that's really our peak. Our second peak is August of all months. And when we normally have a decent monsoon season, this year wasn't exactly a decent season. It's those storms that we're getting a cooling effect first part of August. And people think, okay, it's only 104 today, so I can go hiking. The problem is, like most locals, we're used to 3, 4, 5% humidity. Now you're hiking in 26 to 30% humidity, which for across the nation is no big deal. But for desert dwellers, that's pretty harsh on your body.
Right. We're not used to it.
So that's another component. And the environmental, the heat related responses for fire department in the preserve are by far almost 2 times higher than any other reason for us to be responding out there. So yeah, that temperature and humidity combination in August have a pretty large spike. Just tie into what Madison was talking about, but hydrating.
Yes.
So I've got this old school, old man saying that I give to everybody out there.
Is it an acronym?
Not really,
Dang it.
but it's catchy. It's catchy. It's you can turn a grape into a raisin,
Oh my God.
but you can't turn a raisin into a grape. You feel free to use that, and that could go on your gram page. I'm sorry.
Can I? Okay, so if we do that for the Instagram page, can I get a picture of you and turn you into a raisin?
Yeah, there's
Fix and then some water. Okay, I love it.
but
Love it.
but yeah, no, and that hydration prior to getting the day before, 24 hours
Yes.
before at least. And our visitors that come out here that enjoy the South Scottsdale Shoe Entertainment Area, great. Go out and enjoy yourself. Just don't schedule a hike at 9:00 in the morning when you've been partying all night,
Right.
because you're already dehydrated when you
Right.
get out there. So yeah, pre-hydration. You can turn a grape into a raisin, but you can't turn a raisin into a grape.
And most of the medical calls you respond to, are they for dehydration, heat-related illness? How many are injuries that occur on the trail?
The vast majority are heat related. That was 40% of our responses for being out there. The second largest item is extremity injuries. So those are the ankles, the knees, the fall and I broke my arm thing. Not that these individuals did anything wrong, because tripping and falling is kind of part of the parcel out
I
there.
broke my arm on Pinnacle Peak.
Yes. Some of the heat related things are preventable with preparation, hydration. Some of the extremity injuries, unfortunately, no matter how skilled you are, these things happen. So,
Well, like Madison said, with the tread on your shoes, because it's like walking on marbles and BBs. You know, it's slippery. Or if you're in the south area, it's really, really rocky. You could just clip your toe real easy and go
or
down.
if you've ever walked down East End, which I,
Oh, yeah.
It's so fun.
So
that-
slippery.
Hey, if you want to prepare for the canyon, if you're doing a backpacking trip, highly recommend East End. It's
Yeah.
great to prepare you.
yeah, super fun on the slippery,
Take poles.
slippery
Yeah,
ground.
trekking
Especially
poles.
after it rains, it's just like slip, slip, sliding.
Fortunately, that one's not easily accessible to most people.
It's not.
Yeah, you have to have commitment to get back there.
Yep. And get back up.
And that rescue entails a helicopter.
That's going to be the first call out there. That's a long run for anybody.
Being on the hiking topic, are there any other points or tips that you want to share today?
Have fun. Take lots of pictures. Again, like we were saying, go out early in the morning. We have outstanding sunrises. So it's a great opportunity for you Instagrammers, influencers, if you want that great picture. Go out early in the morning. It's a beautiful sunrise.
But make sure you stay on the trail, because sometimes
Correct.
people are beckoned to go off the trail and stand in front of a saguaro, which that entail gets you more into the rattlesnake
Yep.
situation. Most of the rattlesnake bites that we've had, people have gone off trail. Snake
Yeah.
doesn't want to bite you. It just wants
No.
to hang out and do its thing. But
John
if you're
and-
going,
John and I were out hiking last week, and we were just hiking along, and I heard, "Ah-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta." I was like, okay, let's keep on walking. It was a very angry rattlesnake that was just off the trail. We were on the trail, so we just scurried on past. It wants to do its own thing. Like they always say, an animal is more afraid of you than you are of it. They don't want to expend that energy. They just kind of want to chill in the shade.
I'm doing an entire Scottsdale University safety thing on rattlesnakes.
Perfect. I'll be watching for
Perfect
that.
more for the rattlesnakes.
They're so sweet. They're just like little cats. That's what they remind me of.
They don't purr.
That's a strange
Don't
cat.
buzz.
Very, very strange cat.
It's a hairless cat. Yeah.
We'll stick with Eva.
Yeah.
So our takeaways today are, of course, do your research before you
Please.
get out on that trail,
Yes.
and be mindful while you're out there. Watch for those emergency markers. Take a map with you. Make sure you have plenty of water and the other items that Madison ran through with her acronyms.
If you want those
before
again,
prepping.
they'll be on Scottsdale Preserve. Send me a message and I
All
will
right,
send you those
Scottsdale
acronyms.
Preserve. We plug the Instagram, and don't be afraid to call for help if you need it.
Exactly. And when your water's half gone, turn around.
Yeah. Prevent the rescue before it happens, but if you need us, we're here.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Yvonne and Gary and Madison, for being on the show today. And hopefully our listeners learned something new today and can share this with others, and we'll have a safe season coming up.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for your
Holly.
time.
That's all for this episode of Podsdale. If you enjoyed listening, be sure to subscribe. You can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences with us by emailing communications@scottsdaleaz.gov. We would love to hear from you. Until next time, this is Holly Walter signing off and inviting you to be part of the Scottsdale story.